The Plaza Hotel gleamed like a palace that night. Crystal chandeliers scattered soft golden light across the marble floor, illuminating the sea of tuxedos and designer gowns below. The gentle hum of the string quartet floated through the air as New York's elite gathered for the charity gala of the year. Champagne flowed freely, diamonds sparkled, laughter rippled across the ballroom. No one could have guessed that before the night ended, this same ballroom would witness a scene of unspeakable horror. Sophia Mitchell stood near the back of the room, her hands folded protectively over her 7-month pregnant belly. Her light blue dress looked plain among the designer gowns around her. She had altered it herself that morning, carefully letting out the seams to accommodate her growing form. The fabric stretched taut across her stomach, the only dress she owned that still fit. Her husband had refused to let her buy maternity clothes for the event. "A waste of money," he had said coldly. "You'll only wear it once." Her hair was neatly pinned, her face pale from exhaustion. She tried to smile as a waiter offered her a glass of water, but her lips trembled with the effort. The pain in her lower back had been steadily increasing all day. Her ankles were swollen inside her shoes. She had begged to stay home, but her husband's response had been final. "You'll come and smile," he had said, voice dropping to that dangerous whisper she had come to fear. "I won't have you embarrassing me by hiding away." So she came, as she always did, quiet and obedient, the perfect wife he demanded. At the center of the ballroom stood Alexander Reed, surrounded by admirers. The ruthless investment CEO was the man of the hour, having donated a record sum to the Children's Hospital charity. His black tuxedo fit his athletic frame perfectly. His voice carried authority. His smile looked like confidence, carved from marble. But beside him, clinging to his arm in a red silk gown that left little to imagination, was Victoria Hayes. She whispered something into Alexander's ear and laughed loudly enough for heads to turn. Several guests exchanged knowing glances, pretending not to notice the pregnant wife watching from a distance. Sophia took a slow breath. Her hands trembled slightly, and she gripped her clutch tighter. There had been a time, not so long ago, when she had been the one at Alexander's side, proudly showing off her designs at gallery openings. Before he had systematically dismantled her jewelry business. Before he had cut her off from friends and family. Before the first slap that had shocked her into silence. The waiter returned, hesitating before offering her a tray with several glasses. Sophia reached for a glass of water, but her hand shook. The tray tilted slightly. A few drops of Bordeaux spilled across Alexander's pristine white sleeve as he reached past her for a drink. Time stopped. The music faded to background noise. Conversations broke off mid-sentence. Alexander's smile froze as he looked down at his stained cuff, then up at his wife. His eyes, gray and cold as steel, narrowed with a rage Sophia recognized all too well. "You stupid woman," he hissed, voice low enough that only those closest could hear. The venom in his tone made the nearby guests stiffen. Victoria's painted lips curled in amusement. "I'm sorry," Sophia whispered, voice breaking. "It was an accident." Alexander grabbed her wrist so hard she gasped. His fingers dug into her flesh, leaving instant marks. "You ruined my tuxedo in front of everyone," he growled. "Do you have any idea what this costs?" She tried to pull away, but his grip only tightened. The room fell into an eerie silence. Even the quartet stopped playing, the final note hanging unresolved in the air. "Alexander, please," she whispered. "Not here." "Why not?" he said, tone sharp as glass. "Maybe these people should see what kind of wife I have." Before anyone could move, he dragged her toward the center of the ballroom. Champagne glasses trembled on tables as they passed. Phones emerged from pockets, cameras focusing on the scene unfolding. He yanked the decorative leather whip from the charity auction display, a collector's item meant for the evening's fundraiser. For one heartbeat, Sophia thought he was bluffing. He wasn't. The first lash cracked through the air like thunder. The sound echoed against marble walls as the leather bit through the thin fabric of Sophia's dress. She screamed, stumbling forward as pain tore through her back. The second lash struck harder, then another. "Stop it," someone shouted, but no one moved. 10 lashes, 20, 50. Each stroke cut deeper than the last. Sophia fell to her knees, one hand clutching her stomach, the other bracing against the cold floor. Tears streamed down her face as blood began to seep through the light blue fabric of her dress. She whispered to her unborn child between sobs, "Hold on, baby. Please hold on." Victoria stood still, sipping champagne, her eyes glinting with satisfaction. "Pathetic," she murmured to the woman beside her. 100 lashes, 200, 300. The whip cracked again and again until the air itself seemed to cry out in protest. Blood soaked through the thin fabric of Sophia's dress, spreading like watercolor on canvas. Her breaths turned shallow. The pain blurred her vision, but one thought anchored her to consciousness. Protect the baby. She bent forward, curling around her belly, shielding it from the blows that rained down like fire. Guests whispered frantically. "She's pregnant," someone said. "He's lost his mind." But fear kept them frozen. Alexander Reed was too powerful, too dangerous to confront. When the whip finally fell silent after the 300th strike, Sophia collapsed completely. Her cheek pressed against the marble floor, cold and slick with her own tears. Alexander's chest heaved with exertion and fury. He dropped the whip beside her and spat words that silenced the room. "That's what happens when you embarrass me." No one moved. Cameras blinked like eyes in the dark. Then the doors at the far end of the ballroom opened. The crowd parted instinctively as a tall man in a charcoal suit entered. His presence shifted the entire atmosphere of the room. Conversations died. It was William Mitchell, CEO of Mitchell Global Group, the event's primary sponsor, and the father of the woman lying broken on the floor. He had arrived late after an emergency board meeting, unaware of what had transpired in his absence. But the moment he saw Sophia's bloody dress and her trembling hands covering her belly, his expression changed from cordial to stone. He walked forward slowly, his shoes clicking against the marble with deliberate precision. Each step echoed in the silent hall. Alexander turned, his smirk faltering as recognition dawned. "Mr. Mitchell," he started, voice shaking slightly. "This isn't what it looks like." William cut him off. His voice was low, calm, but it carried through every corner of the ballroom. "You just beat my daughter." 4 simple words, no shouting, no dramatic gestures, just a cold statement of fact that carried more menace than any threat could have conveyed. The silence was absolute. William knelt beside Sophia, gently lifting her head. Her lips quivered, her eyes half closed in pain. "Dad," she whispered weakly, "I'm sorry." "You have nothing to be sorry for," he said softly, brushing a strand of hair from her face. His gaze rose to Alexander. "But he will be." He stood, still holding Sophia protectively. Around them, flashes from cameras exploded like lightning. The chandeliers reflected off the tears on her cheeks. For the first time that night, Alexander Reed looked afraid. And that was the exact moment the world began to turn against him. The night of the gala ended in chaos. Guests fled the ballroom, whispering in disbelief as security tried to restore order. The music had stopped, but its echo still lingered like a haunting memory. Outside the hotel, the flashing lights of ambulances painted the night in red and white. Photographers surrounded the entrance, shouting questions as William Mitchell carried his daughter toward the waiting emergency vehicle. "Mr. Mitchell, is it true that Mr. Reed attacked his wife? How badly is she injured? Will there be charges?" William said nothing. His face remained expressionless. But those who knew him recognized the cold fury in his eyes, the same expression that had preceded the downfall of 3 Fortune 500 CEOs who had crossed him over his 40-year career. He placed Sophia inside the ambulance, then climbed in beside her. Inside, the paramedic worked quickly. "She's in shock," the woman said, checking Sophia's pulse. "But the baby's still moving. We'll know more once we reach the hospital." William's hands clenched into fists. He looked down at his daughter, whispering softly, "Hold on, sweetheart. Just hold on." The ambulance raced through the midnight streets of Manhattan, sirens wailing. William stared out the window, the city lights blurring past. He had built empires, crushed rivals, moved mountains in the business world. Yet at that moment, he felt powerless. He had missed everything. The signs, the bruises she must have hidden, the way her laughter had faded each time he called. How long had this been happening? How had he failed so completely as a father? At St. Mary's Hospital, doctors rushed Sophia into the emergency ward. William waited outside the glass doors, every second stretching into eternity. Finally, a doctor emerged, removing his mask. "She's stable," he said carefully. "The wounds are severe, but she's strong. The baby's heartbeat is faint but steady. We're monitoring both closely." William nodded once, relief washing over him. "I want your best staff on her, doctor, whatever it costs." The doctor hesitated. "Of course, Mr. Mitchell, but you should know the media is already outside. The story is spreading fast." William turned toward the corridor window. Through the glass, he could see flashes of camera lights outside the hospital gates. "Let them talk," he said quietly. "Tonight, the world will see what kind of monster he really is." When Sophia woke hours later, dawn had just begun to lighten the sky. Her eyes fluttered open to the sound of soft beeping monitors and the sterile smell of antiseptic. For a moment, she thought she was still dreaming. Then she saw her father sitting beside her bed. His gray hair was disheveled, his tie undone, his eyes rimmed red from a sleepless night. The sight of him, powerful William Mitchell looking so vulnerable, brought tears to her eyes. "Dad," she whispered. William leaned forward immediately, taking her hand. "I'm here," he said. "You're safe now." She looked around the room, confusion mixing with fear. "The baby?" "The baby's still fighting," he said gently, "just like you." Tears filled her eyes. "I thought I was going to lose everything." "You will not lose anything again," William said, his voice trembling slightly. "Not while I'm breathing." She turned her face away, ashamed. "I didn't tell you how bad it was. I thought I could fix it. I thought if I stayed quiet, he'd change." William shook his head slowly. That man was never going to change. Men like him only understand power. His voice hardened. "And now he's about to learn that he attacked the wrong family." She blinked, startled by the steel in his tone. "What are you going to do?" "What I should have done a long time ago," he said, rising to his feet. "I'm going to destroy him." Maida. That morning, the news exploded across every network. Billionaire investor Alexander Reed attacks pregnant wife at charity gala. Mitchell family demands justice. Video clips of the assault flooded social media. Some guests had secretly recorded the entire event. The world watched in horror as the footage showed Sophia collapsing, Alexander towering over her, whip in hand. In the expansive boardroom on the 60th floor of Mitchell Tower, William faced his son, James Mitchell, and their longtime legal advisor, Rachel Wong. The city skyline glowed behind them in the morning light. James slammed his fist on the polished mahogany table. "We can't just sit here. He nearly killed her. He could have killed the baby, my niece or nephew." Rachel adjusted her glasses calmly. "We need to move strategically. Emotional decisions lead to mistakes. We'll start with the evidence, build a criminal and civil case simultaneously." William's eyes burned with a cold fire his executives had learned to fear. "Make it happen. Every connection, every reporter, every shareholder he has, I want them to see him for what he is." James nodded grimly. "I'll contact Michael Chen. He can trace Reed's shell companies and financial dealings. We'll hit him from both sides, legal and economic." Rachel looked at William. "You understand what you're starting, don't you? This will be public, brutal. There's no pulling back once we begin." William's jaw tightened. "He made it public when he laid a hand on my daughter." Meanwhile, at the hospital, Sophia lay awake watching the sunrise through the window. The light was pale blue, gentle, like the color of her torn dress. The nurses whispered as they passed her room. She could feel the world watching her, judging her, pitying her. She hated it. But when she looked at her father standing by the doorway, phone pressed to his ear, his expression hard with determination, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. Later that day, William entered her room again. He sat down beside her, his demeanor softer now. "I spoke to the doctors. You'll need rest, but you'll recover. The baby's condition is improving too." She nodded weakly. "What about Alexander?" "He's hiding," William replied. "His lawyers are scrambling. But don't worry. The moment he steps out, the world will be waiting for him." She closed her eyes, whispering, "I don't want revenge, Dad. I just want peace." William reached over, brushing her hair back gently. "Peace will come, but only when justice is done." Outside, cameras flashed through the hospital windows. Reporters shouted questions. "Sophia, do you forgive him? Will you testify?" She turned away from the noise, holding her father's hand. "Do whatever you have to, Dad. Just make sure he can never hurt anyone again." William nodded slowly. "That's exactly what I intend to do." He stood and walked to the door, pausing for a final glance at his daughter, resting in the pale light. In that moment, he stopped being a businessman and became something far more dangerous. He became a father at war. Bam! Morning light spilled across the skyline of Manhattan as the Mitchell Global boardroom came to life. The room was vast, lined with glass walls that overlooked the city, a view usually reserved for billion-dollar negotiations. But today, there were no contracts or mergers on the table, only vengeance. William Mitchell stood at the head of the long conference table, his reflection framed by the cold glow of the windows. At 62, he still maintained the physique of the Marine he had been in his youth. His gray eyes were steady, calm on the surface, but burning underneath. James Mitchell entered carrying a tablet, his expression tight with anger. At 36, he had his father's build and determination, but a quicker temper. one that had served him well as Mitchell Global's chief operations officer. The footage from the gala is everywhere, he said. Every outlet has it. CNN, The Times, even overseas. Reed has become the most hated man in America overnight. William did not look surprised. Good, let the world see what he really is. Across the table sat Rachel Wong, the family's chief legal advisor for over 20 years. Her navy suit was crisp, her silver-streaked hair pulled into a tight bun. At 56, she had built a reputation as one of the most formidable corporate attorneys in New York. "We can't rely on public opinion alone," she began. "We need a concrete strategy. I've already spoken with the district attorney's office. They're willing to open a criminal investigation if we provide direct evidence. The video helps, but we need corroborating testimony." William nodded slowly. "We'll get it. Start with the witnesses from the gala." Rachel's brows furrowed. Most of them are terrified of crossing Reed. He has money, connections, influence. The financial world fears him. William's voice hardened. "Then remind them that he no longer has protection. The Mitchells do." James set the tablet on the table and played a clip. The video showed Alexander raising the whip. The crowd frozen around him. The sickening sound of leather striking flesh echoed through the boardroom. Sophia's cry filled the room. Even though they had already seen it dozens of times, the pain was fresh with every viewing. Rachel lowered her eyes. "We'll win this, William, but it won't be easy." "I don't care how long it takes." James clenched his jaw. "He nearly killed her. He needs to lose everything. His name, his company, his freedom." William placed a hand on his son's shoulder. "You and I agree on that." At that moment, the glass doors opened. Michael Chen, the head of security for Mitchell Global, entered the room. At 42, the former FBI agent had the quiet confidence of a man who knew how to find secrets others wanted hidden. "I have something," Michael said, placing a secure tablet on the table. "Reed Investments has a network of offshore accounts. Most of the funds are linked to shell corporations in Singapore and Zurich. They look clean, but they're not." The screen displayed a complex diagram of financial transactions. There are payments that trace back to campaign contributions, bribes to building inspectors, even property purchases under fake names. William's gaze sharpened. "How much proof do we have?" Michael opened a secure folder, revealing a series of wire transfers. "Enough to start a financial investigation. If we leak this to the Securities and Exchange Commission, it'll trigger a panic among his investors. The stock will crash before he can respond." Rachel raised an eyebrow. "If we leak it too soon, he might destroy evidence. Let's make sure the authorities are already watching him before the story hits." William thought for a moment, then nodded. "Do both. File a report quietly with the SEC, then leak it in 48 hours. He looked at his son. "James, I want you to personally call every major investor in Reed Investments. Don't make accusations. Just ask innocent questions about their confidence in the company's leadership." James smiled grimly. "Consider it done." "We're going to war, aren't we?" he asked his father. William met his eyes. "No, war is chaos. This will be precision. Every strike planned, every move calculated. He won't even realize he's fallen until it's already over." Bam! While the Mitchells planned their counterattack, the rest of the city buzzed with the story. The footage from the gala dominated every news cycle. Outside Reed Investments headquarters, protesters held signs reading, "Justice for Sophia and no excuse for violence." Inside that same building, Alexander Reed sat in his office, seething. His lawyer, sweating through his expensive suit, stammered as he read the latest headlines. "It's bad, sir. Investors are calling. The board wants an emergency meeting. The stock has dropped 15% since the market opened." Alexander slammed his hand on the desk, making the man flinch. "I don't care about investors. Find out who released that footage. Sue them for everything they have. We think it came from multiple sources. There's no way to know who leaked it first." Alexander leaned back in his chair, his jaw tight. "William Mitchell did this. He's behind everything. He's trying to ruin me." The lawyer hesitated. "Sir, with respect, you did this yourself, in front of 300 witnesses." Alexander's glare turned deadly. "Get out, and find me someone who can actually fix this." The man fled the room, leaving Alexander alone with his fury. On the television behind him, news anchors replayed the video again and again. Each time, the image of him raising the whip burned deeper into the public consciousness. He picked up his phone and dialed Victoria's number. She answered on the third ring. "The media is outside my apartment," she said without greeting. "What am I supposed to tell them?" "Nothing," Alexander snapped. "Not a word. This will blow over." There was a long pause on the line. "Will it?" I saw what you did, Alexander. Everyone saw. Are you turning against me too? His voice dropped to that dangerous whisper. I'm trying to protect myself, she replied coldly. You told me she was difficult. You never said you were beating a pregnant woman. Victoria, I have to go. There's another reporter calling. The line went dead. Alexander hurled the phone across the room, watching it shatter against the wall. His intercom buzzed. Mr. Reed, there are 2 FBI agents here to see you. They say it's about financial irregularities. Alexander froze, his blood running cold. Mitchell was moving faster than he had anticipated. Man. Back at St. Mary's Hospital, Sophia was slowly regaining her strength. She watched the news from her bed, her hand resting protectively on her belly. Every headline carried her name. Some called her brave, others called her tragic. She didn't feel either. She just felt tired. But when she saw her father's face on television, standing in front of microphones with the Mitchell Global logo behind him, her heart swelled. He spoke calmly, his voice steady. No man, no matter how rich or powerful, has the right to harm another human being. My daughter will recover, and justice will prevail. The reporters erupted in questions, but William walked away without another word. Sophia smiled faintly, tears slipping down her cheeks. For the first time, she realized that her father wasn't just fighting for her. He was fighting for every woman who had ever been silenced by fear. A nurse entered, checking her vitals. You're healing well, she said gently. Your father has arranged for a private security detail. No one gets in without clearance. Thank you, Sophia whispered. When the nurse left, Sophia exhaled shakily. She turned her gaze to the small TV mounted on the wall. The news showed a new development. FBI agents were seen entering Reed Investments headquarters. A knock broke the silence. William entered quietly, holding a folder under his arm. He looked tired, older somehow, but his eyes were determined. How's my girl? He asked softly. She gave a small, broken smile. Alive. He walked to her side, placing the folder on the table. That's enough for now. She looked at the folder curiously. What's that? Evidence, he said. Rachel and James have been gathering information, but we're missing one thing. What is it? Someone who saw what he was like behind closed doors. Someone who can speak without fear. Before Sophia could answer, another knock came. The door opened slowly and a woman stepped inside. Mrs. Reed, the woman said softly, her voice trembling slightly. It's me, Maria Delgado. I used to work in your house. Sophia froze. Maria was in her mid-40s, wearing a simple gray coat. Her hands fidgeted nervously as she looked at the young woman in the hospital bed. Maria, Sophia whispered, I thought you left months ago. Maria nodded. I did. I couldn't watch anymore. But after what happened, I knew I had to come forward. She reached into her purse and pulled out a small flash drive. I recorded everything. The night it happened, and other nights too. William's eyes sharpened. Other nights? Maria nodded again, tears glistening. He hit her before many times when she was too scared to scream. When no one else was around, she looked down. I thought he would stop when she got pregnant. I was wrong. Sophia's hands trembled. You filmed it? I hid cameras in the living room, Maria said. For my own safety at first. I never meant to expose him, but after what I saw at the gala, her voice broke. I couldn't stay silent anymore. William stepped forward, placing a hand on Maria's shoulder. You did the right thing. Maria looked at Sophia, guilt clouding her face. I should have done it sooner. Maybe then. Sophia shook her head weakly. No, you saved me now. That's what matters. William took the flash drive and slipped it into the folder. This will change everything. When Maria left, the room fell silent again. William sat down, his tone softer. You see, sweetheart? Even in darkness, there are still people willing to stand up. Sophia stared at the window again, her reflection faint against the morning light. I don't feel strong, Dad. I feel broken. William took her hand. Strength doesn't mean you don't break. It means you refuse to stay broken. Her eyes filled with tears. I don't know if I can face the world again. You will, he said firmly. And when you do, they'll see you not as a victim, but as the proof that justice exists. William's phone buzzed. He checked the message, his expression changing subtly. What is it? Sophia asked. The FBI has seized Alexander's records. They found something big. He squeezed her hand. It's beginning, sweetheart. His empire is already crumbling. Outside the window, the morning sun broke through the clouds, casting long rays across the city. A new day had dawned, and with it, the promise that Alexander Reed would finally face the consequences of his actions. For the first time in years, Sophia Mitchell felt something stir within her. It wasn't just hope. It was justice. Morning sunlight glinted off the glass facade of Mitchell Tower, casting long shadows across Manhattan's financial district. On the 60th floor, the air hummed with tension as William Mitchell surveyed the city below. From this height, the streets looked like arteries, pulsing with the lifeblood of commerce and ambition. Somewhere out there, Alexander Reed was scrambling to save what remained of his crumbling empire. William allowed himself a moment of grim satisfaction. The first blow had been struck. Behind him, the boardroom had been transformed into a war room. Digital screens displayed financial data, news feeds, and surveillance footage. James Mitchell stood at the center table, directing a team of analysts as they dissected Reed Investments' portfolio piece by piece. Rachel Wong entered, carrying a leather portfolio. Her expression remained professionally neutral, but the slight upward curve of her lips betrayed her confidence. "The district attorney has agreed to meet with us this afternoon," she said. "The video evidence is compelling, but we'll need more to ensure maximum charges." William nodded, his gaze still fixed on the horizon. "What about the SEC investigation?" "Moving faster than expected," Rachel replied, laying several documents on the table. "They've already frozen 3 of Reed's primary accounts pending investigation." James looked up from his tablet. "The stock has dropped 28% since opening bell. The board is calling an emergency meeting for tomorrow." William turned from the window, his eyes reflecting the same steely resolve that had made him a legend in corporate America. "Not enough. I want every aspect of his life dismantled, every secret exposed, every ally turned against him." The doors to the boardroom opened again. Michael Chen entered, his movements precise and economical. The former FBI agent carried himself with the quiet confidence of a man accustomed to operating in shadows. "Sir, I have something you need to see." Michael connected his secure tablet to the main screen. Complex financial diagrams appeared, showing a web of transactions flowing through offshore accounts. "Reed's financial crimes go deeper than we thought," Michael explained, his voice calm but edged with urgency. "We're not just looking at tax evasion or minor securities fraud. This is a sophisticated money laundering operation worth approximately $350 million. The room fell silent. William's expression hardened as he studied the diagram. "Are you certain?" Michael nodded once. "I've verified it through 3 separate sources. Reed has been moving money through shell companies in the Cayman Islands, Zurich, and Singapore. Some of it appears to be from legitimate investors, but a significant portion comes from sources he wouldn't want made public." James whistled softly. "This changes everything. We can bring in the FBI, the Treasury Department, the IRS." William moved closer to the screen, examining the complex web of financial deception. "So he's not just an abuser. He's a criminal hiding behind a veneer of respectability." He turned to Rachel. "Can we use this?" She was already making notes. "Absolutely. This elevates the case from a domestic violence incident, however brutal, to a pattern of criminality. It establishes character." "There's more," Michael added. "Reed kept meticulous records, everything from offshore account numbers to blackmail material on business rivals." He paused. "The problem is accessing them. According to my source inside Reed Investments, he keeps the most sensitive information in a secure safe in his private office, biometric access only." William considered this information, mind working through the implications. "How do we get into that safe?" "Conventional methods won't work," Michael replied. "But there might be another way." He glanced at Rachel. "Victoria Hayes has access to Reed's office. My intelligence suggests she's growing increasingly unhappy with their arrangement." Rachel raised an eyebrow. "You think she'd turn on him?" "I think she's already considering it," Michael said. "After seeing the public reaction to the Gala incident, she's distancing herself. Her social media accounts have gone private, and she's canceled 3 public appearances." William nodded slowly. "Make the approach. Carefully. If Reed suspects we're recruiting his mistress, he'll cut her off completely." "I'll handle it personally," Rachel replied. James frowned. "Can we trust her? She stood there watching while Alexander beat Sophia. She didn't lift a finger to help." "We don't need to trust her," William said coldly. "We just need to use her, the same way Reed has been using her all along." He turned back to the window, watching the city below. The sun had climbed higher now, burning away the morning mist. "Michael, I want daily reports on Reed's movements. Where he goes, who he meets, what he does. I want to know if he so much as buys a cup of coffee." "Already in motion, sir. I have a surveillance team in place." William's phone buzzed. He checked the message, an update from Sophia's private security detail at the hospital. "I need to see my daughter," he said. "James, continue the financial analysis. Rachel, Prepare for the DA meeting. Michael, find me a way into that safe. As William moved toward the door, he paused, looking back at the assembled team. Reed thought he was untouchable because of his money and connections. By the time we're done, he'll understand what real power looks like. Alexander Reed's penthouse occupied the top 2 floors of a sleek building in Tribeca, offering panoramic views of the Hudson River. Floor-to-ceiling windows normally flooded the space with natural light, but today the automated blinds remained closed, casting the living room in artificial shadow. Alexander stood before a wall of screens, watching financial news networks report on the freefall of Reed Investment stock. His face, normally composed into a mask of confidence, now twitched with barely contained rage. A half-empty tumbler of bourbon dangled from his fingers despite the early hour. "They're destroying me," he muttered, hurling the glass against the nearest screen. It shattered, sending amber liquid and crystal shards across the pristine white floor. His attorney, Howard Griffith, remained seated on the leather sofa, maintaining a practiced calm. At 62, Griffith had represented Wall Street's elite through countless scandals. He'd seen fortunes made and lost, careers built and destroyed. Nothing surprised him anymore. "The situation is challenging, but manageable," Griffith said, carefully adjusting his gold cufflinks. "The SEC investigation is concerning, but we've weathered similar storms before." Alexander laughed bitterly. "Similar? My company has lost $130 million in market value since yesterday. My board is plotting against me. The FBI has seized my records. Records which will reveal nothing," Griffith reminded him smoothly. "You've been careful." "Careful enough?" Alexander turned, his eyes burning with intensity. "Mitchell is coming for everything. He has resources I didn't anticipate." "William Mitchell is powerful, yes, but he's overplaying his hand," Griffith replied. "His daughter isn't exactly innocent in all this. We have the records of her therapy sessions, the prescription medications for anxiety and depression. We can paint a picture of instability." Alexander paced across the room, stepping over the broken glass. "That won't be enough. Mitchell has connections with half the judges in New York." "Then perhaps it's time to consider a strategic approach," Griffith suggested. "A public apology, a generous settlement offer, a pledge to seek treatment for anger management. The public loves a redemption story." Alexander stopped pacing, his expression darkening. "I don't apologize. I don't settle. And I certainly don't admit weakness." He moved to the bar, pouring another drink. "Mitchell thinks he can destroy me? He has no idea who he's dealing with. I've crushed men twice as powerful." "Alexander, consider the optics. The video evidence is damaging." "Find out who leaked that footage," Alexander snapped. "Sue them into oblivion." Griffith sighed. It was a public event with hundreds of witnesses, all carrying phones. The footage came from multiple sources. There's no single leaker to target. Alexander's phone rang. He checked the caller ID and frowned. "It's Victoria," he answered, putting it on speaker. "Where have you been? I've been calling for hours." Victoria's voice came through, tense and distant. "I can't keep doing this, Alexander. The reporters won't leave my apartment. My modeling agency is threatening to drop me. My parents are asking questions I can't answer." "It'll blow over," Alexander said dismissively. "Just stay out of sight for a few days." "Blow over?" Her incredulous laugh carried through the speaker. "You beat your pregnant wife 300 times with a whip in front of New York's elite. That doesn't just blow over." Alexander's knuckles whitened around the phone. "Watch your tone, Victoria. Remember who pays for that apartment, who bought you that car, who introduced you to every valuable connection you have." A long silence followed, then, "Are you threatening me now, like you threatened Sophia?" "Victoria." His voice dropped to that dangerous whisper. "I have to go," she said quickly. "Someone's at the door." The call ended. Alexander stared at the phone, jaw clenched. "You need to be careful with her," Griffith warned. "A scorned mistress with insider knowledge is a liability we can't afford right now." Alexander's eyes narrowed. "She wouldn't dare turn against me. She knows the consequences." Outside the penthouse, thunder rumbled across the skyline. A storm was gathering over Manhattan, dark clouds rolling in from the west. It seemed fitting somehow, a physical manifestation of the forces aligning against Alexander Reed. The upscale restaurant in Midtown Manhattan offered private dining rooms for those seeking discretion. In one such room, with its mahogany paneling and subtle lighting, Rachel Wong sat across from Victoria Hayes. A bottle of expensive Bordeaux remained untouched between them. Victoria looked different today. No designer dress, no perfectly styled hair. She wore a simple black blouse and minimal makeup. Her fingers nervously toyed with the stem of her wine glass. I'm surprised you agreed to meet me, Rachel said, studying the younger woman. Victoria glanced toward the door. I shouldn't be here. If Alexander finds out, he won't, Rachel assured her. This restaurant values privacy above all else. The owner is a longtime associate of Mr. Mitchell. Victoria took a shaky breath. What does Mitchell want from me? Revenge? Justice, Rachel corrected, and information. She opened a slim folder, sliding several documents across the table. Victoria hesitated before examining them. Bank statements, transfer records, and corporate registrations, all bearing her signature. Her face paled. These are offshore accounts in your name, Rachel finished, holding approximately $42 million of questionable origin, accounts you claim to know nothing about. Victoria's hand trembled. Alexander said they were tax structures, investment vehicles. He said it was normal practice. There's nothing normal about financial fraud, Ms. Hayes, Rachel said calmly. These accounts have received funds from sources that would interest several federal agencies. Your signature on these documents makes you complicit. Victoria's eyes widened. He said it was just paperwork, that I didn't need to understand the details. A convenient arrangement for Mr. Reed, Rachel observed. He gets access to accounts that can't be easily traced to him, while you assume all the legal risk. Victoria pushed the documents away as if their physical presence contaminated her. What do you want from me? The truth, Rachel replied simply. About Alexander Reed, about what you've witnessed, about what you know. And in exchange, Mr. Mitchell has considerable influence. He can ensure that your cooperation is noted by the relevant authorities. Victoria stared at her wine glass, conflict evident in her expression. Alexander has information on me, too. Things that could ruin me. Mr. Reed's capacity to harm anyone is diminishing by the hour, Rachel pointed out. His assets are being frozen. His reputation is in tatters. His freedom is increasingly in jeopardy. Victoria remained silent for a long moment, weighing her options. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. He made her sign documents, financial papers. She thought they were household expenses, but they were transfers. Millions of dollars. Rachel leaned forward slightly. He forged her signature? No, Victoria said, looking up. That's the thing, he made her sign. But she didn't know what she was signing. When she asked questions, She trailed off. He what, Ms. Hayes? He hurt her, Victoria whispered. Not like at the Gala, worse, where no one could see the marks. Rachel kept her expression neutral, though her stomach tightened. Would you testify to this? Victoria stared at her hands. If I do, he'll release things about me, my past, things I've done that I'm not proud of. Ms. Hayes, Rachel said carefully, consider which you fear more, Alexander Reed's retribution or federal prison for financial crimes you claim you didn't knowingly commit. Victoria looked up, sudden resolve hardening her features. I'll do more than testify. I can get you into his office, the safe, his private files, everything you need. Rachel allowed herself a small smile. Now we're getting somewhere. She reached for her phone, composing a text to William Mitchell. We have our way in. Plan B is active. Dumb. At St. Mary's Hospital, Sophia Mitchell sat propped against pillows, watching raindrops race down the window. The storm that had threatened all morning had finally broken, washing the city in sheets of gray water. The rhythmic beeping of monitors provided a counterpoint to the patter of rain. Her physical pain had begun to subside, replaced by a hollow numbness that felt almost worse. The doctors said her wounds were healing well, that the baby remained stable. Small mercies in a world suddenly turned upside down. A nurse entered, checking vitals and adjusting medication. Your father is here, she said gently. Are you up for a visitor? Sophia nodded, smoothing the hospital blanket over her legs. She caught a glimpse of her reflection in the darkened window, pale, drawn, with shadows beneath her eyes. A ghost of her former self. William entered, carrying a small potted orchid. Unlike his usual perfectly tailored appearance, he looked slightly rumpled, as if he'd been working through the night. Despite this, his presence filled the sterile room with a quiet strength. Hey, sweetheart, he said, placing the orchid on the windowsill. The doctors say you're improving. The baby's heartbeat is stronger, she replied. That's all that matters. William pulled a chair beside her bed. Sophia, there are some developments you should know about. She tensed slightly. Alexander? The investigation is expanding beyond the assault, William said carefully. There's evidence of financial crimes, significant ones. Sophia's brow furrowed. What kind of crimes? Money laundering, securities fraud. Possibly worse. He hesitated. Did you sign financial documents for him? Papers you might not have fully understood. A shadow crossed her face. He made me sign things, said they were routine that I wouldn't understand anyway. She looked down. When I asked questions, he would get angry, so I stopped asking. William's jaw tightened, but he kept his voice gentle. Those signatures may have been used for illegal transfers. The FBI is investigating. Sophia closed her eyes, fresh shame washing over her. I should have known. Should have questioned more. Should have... No, William interrupted firmly. This is not your fault. He manipulated and abused you. He's the criminal, not you. She turned toward the window, watching lightning flash across the darkened sky. All those years, I thought I was protecting our marriage, our future, but I was just enabling his crimes. William took her hand. Sophia, listen to me. You survived. You protected your baby against impossible odds. That took extraordinary strength. She didn't respond, lost in painful memories. There's something else, William continued after a moment. The prosecutor believes your testimony would be powerful, but only if you're willing. No one will force you to relive that trauma in court. Sophia remained silent, still watching the storm outside. When she finally spoke, her voice was different, steadier, with an undercurrent of resolve William hadn't heard in years. When does the trial begin? William studied her face. You don't have to do this. I do, she said simply. Not just for me. For every woman who's been silenced by fear. For my baby, who deserves a mother who stood up for the truth. Pride swelled in William's chest, mingled with a father's aching concern. The doctors say you need rest. Time to heal. What I need, Sophia replied, meeting his gaze directly, is to reclaim my voice. Alexander took everything else from me. He doesn't get to take that too. William nodded slowly, recognizing the Mitchell determination that ran in her blood, the same unyielding resolve that had built his empire. All right, I'll tell Rachel to prepare you for testimony. Sophia turned back to the window. The rain was easing now, the worst of the storm passing. Dad, she said quietly, there's something else you should know. Something I found in Alexander's study before the gala. William waited, giving her space to continue. There was a document, a list of offshore accounts, names I didn't recognize, but one stood out. She looked at him. Senator Harrison's name was on that list, monthly payments. William's expression remained neutral, but his mind raced with implications. Senator Richard Harrison chaired the banking committee with significant influence over financial regulations. Are you certain? She nodded. I memorized it, thought I might need leverage someday if... She didn't finish the thought. William stood, squeezing her hand gently. You've just handed us a powerful weapon, Sophia. Rest now. I need to make some calls. As he reached the door, Sophia called after him. Dad? He turned. Make him pay. Not just for what he did to me, for everything. The steel in her voice matched his own. That's exactly what I intend to do. But rain lashed against the windows of the Mitchell Tower as the strategy team reconvened. The boardroom buzzed with renewed energy following William's return from the hospital. Senator Harrison, William announced without preamble. Sophia saw his name on Reed's payment list, monthly transfers to an offshore account. Rachel's eyebrows rose. That would explain how Reed's companies avoided regulatory scrutiny during the banking investigation last year. James whistled softly. Harrison has presidential ambitions. This could end his career. More importantly, Michael added, it gives us leverage. Harrison has friends throughout the justice system. William nodded. I want this verified before we move. Michael, accelerate the operation with Victoria Hayes. We need access to that safe. Already arranged, Michael replied. She'll get us in tomorrow night. Reed has a dinner meeting with investors trying to salvage confidence in his company. The building will be mostly empty. Good. William turned to Rachel. Where do we stand with the date? The meeting went well, she reported. They're considering multiple felony charges for the assault. If we deliver the financial evidence, they'll add fraud and money laundering. Looking at 15 to 20 years if convicted on all counts. William's phone buzzed with an alert from one of the financial screens. Reed Investment stock had dropped another 15% in the final hour of trading. The board meeting scheduled for tomorrow had been moved up to an emergency session tonight. He's running out of time and options, James observed. The vultures are circling. William studied the financial data. Reed still has powerful friends, people who owe him favors, people with secrets they don't want exposed. That works both ways, Michael pointed out. Many of those same people are now weighing their loyalties. Standing with Reed is becoming a liability. William walked to the window, watching lightning illuminate the city skyline. Tomorrow night we get the evidence. By the end of the week, we present it to the FBI and the district attorney. He turned back to the room. Then Alexander Reed will understand what it means to lose everything. Ba-bomb. Victoria Hayes stood in the silent elevator, watching floor numbers illuminate as she ascended to the executive level of Reed Investments. Despite the late hour, her heart raced with nervous energy. The small electronic device in her purse seemed to burn against her side, a sophisticated hacking tool provided by Michael Chen. The elevator doors opened to the darkened executive floor. Security lights cast long shadows across the empty reception area. Victoria's heels clicked against marble as she approached Alexander's office, the sound echoing in the silence. She pressed her thumb to the biometric scanner beside the heavy oak door. A moment of hesitation, then the soft click of the lock disengaging. She had used her access countless times before, usually bringing Alexander late-night drinks while he worked. Tonight's purpose was entirely different. The spacious corner office remained as imposing as ever. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered spectacular views of nighttime Manhattan. Alexander's massive desk dominated the room, its polished surface reflecting the city lights outside. Victoria moved quickly to the wall safe hidden behind an abstract painting. She removed the small electronic device from her purse, attaching it to the safe's digital keypad according to Michael's instructions. The device lit up, cycling through number combinations at blinding speed. While it worked, Victoria opened Alexander's desk drawers, photographing documents with her phone, banking statements, property deeds, correspondence with offshore entities. Each image was automatically uploaded to a secure server. A soft beep indicated the safe-cracking device had succeeded. Victoria removed it, then carefully opened the heavy safe door. Inside lay stacks of documents, USB drives, and a leather-bound ledger. She removed everything, methodically photographing each item. The ledger contained handwritten notes documenting payments to politicians, judges, and business rivals. Names, dates, and amounts, all in Alexander's distinctive handwriting. The ultimate insurance policy against betrayal, now becoming his downfall. Victoria's hands trembled as she worked. Every sound, the building's ventilation system, the distant honk of a car horn, the rustle of papers, made her flinch. Discovery would be catastrophic. As she photographed the final document, a noise from the outer office froze her in place. Footsteps. The cleaning crew shouldn't be here at this hour. Security did rounds, but rarely entered the executive suites. Victoria quickly replaced everything in the safe, closing it carefully. She had just rehung the painting when the office door opened. Alexander Reed stood in the doorway, his silhouette dark against the hallway lights. "Victoria," he said, voice dangerously soft. What a surprise. She forced a smile, heart hammering against her ribs. "Alexander, I thought you had the board meeting." "It ended early," he replied, stepping into the office. "They voted to temporarily remove me as CEO while the investigations proceed." His tone remained conversational, but ice underlay each word. "Fascinating timing, don't you think? The same day you suddenly stopped answering my calls." "I've been dealing with the press," she said, gesturing vaguely. "It's been overwhelming." Alexander moved closer, his eyes never leaving hers. "And that brought you to my office at 11 o'clock at night?" Victoria backed up slightly. "I left some personal items here. I didn't want to come during business hours with everything happening." His gaze flicked to the painting covering the safe, then back to her face. "Personal items." "Yes." Her mouth went dry. Alexander reached out suddenly, gripping her wrist. "What did Mitchell offer you? Money? Protection? A modeling contract that doesn't require you to sleep with executives?" "Alexander, you're hurting me." It wasn't an act. His fingers dug into her flesh with bruising force. "Answer the question," he hissed, all pretense of civility evaporating. The elevator dinged in the outer office. Voices approached, security guards on their rounds. Alexander released her wrist, composing himself instantly. "This isn't over," he whispered. "Whatever game you're playing, remember who taught you how to play." The security guards appeared at the doorway. "Everything all right, Mr. Reed?" "Fine," Alexander replied smoothly. Ms. Hayes was just leaving. Victoria gathered her purse, moving toward the door with forced calm. "Good night, Alexander." Only when the elevator doors closed behind her did she allow herself to tremble. She pulled out her phone, sending a one-word text to the number Michael had given her. "Compromised." The response came immediately. "Exit South Lobby, black SUV waiting." Victoria's heart continued its frantic rhythm as the elevator descended. She had gotten what they needed. The photos had already transmitted. But Alexander suspected her now, and she knew better than anyone what happened to those who betrayed Alexander Reed. Dawn broke over New York City, painting the skyline in hues of gold and pink. In the Mitchell Tower war room, the team had worked through the night analyzing the evidence Victoria had provided. William stood before a digital wall displaying the most damning documents. Senator Harrison's name appeared prominently, along with 3 federal judges, a banking regulator, and numerous business associates. The web of corruption extended far beyond what they had initially suspected. "This is beyond financial crime," Rachel said, reviewing the material. "This is systemic corruption, bribery, blackmail, even evidence suggesting witness intimidation in previous lawsuits. The FBI needs to see this immediately," Michael added. "This goes beyond our vendetta against Reed." William studied the documents. "Agreed, but we release it our way, on our timeline." He turned to James. "What's Reed's status this morning?" "The board's decision is public now," James reported. "Reed Investment stock is in free fall. Trading might be halted to prevent complete collapse. Reed himself hasn't been seen since his confrontation with Victoria last night." "Is she secure?" William asked. Michael nodded. "We've moved her to a safe house upstate, full security detail. Reed won't find her." William's phone rang, Sophia's private nurse. He answered immediately, listening with growing tension. "I'll be right there," he said, ending the call. "Sophia's having contractions. The doctors are concerned about premature labor." The room fell silent. At 7 months, the baby's chances were good but not certain. The stress and trauma had finally taken their toll. "Go," Rachel said firmly. "We'll handle things here." William headed for the door, pausing only to give final instructions. "Prepare the evidence for the FBI, but hold the information about Senator Harrison until I return. That's our ace card." As William rushed from the building, rain began to fall again, a soft whisper against the windows. In the quiet boardroom, the team exchanged determined glances. The battle against Alexander Reed had become more than personal vengeance. It was now a crusade against corruption that reached into the highest levels of power. And somewhere in the city, Alexander Reed watched his empire crumbling, unaware that the worst was yet to come. Rain battered the windows of St. Mary's Hospital as William Mitchell raced down the sterile corridor. Medical staff stepped aside, recognizing the determined set of his jaw, the same expression that had preceded corporate takeovers and boardroom victories. But this was no business crisis. This was his daughter. The door to Sophia's room stood open, revealing a flurry of medical activity. Machines beeped insistently. A fetal heart monitor tracked the rapid rhythm of the unborn child. 2 nurses moved with practiced efficiency, while an obstetrician studied readouts with a furrowed brow. Sophia lay amid the chaos, pale and frightened but composed. When she saw her father, relief washed over her face. William moved immediately to her side, taking her hand. "I'm here," he said quietly. "The baby," she whispered. "They say it's too early." The obstetrician, Dr. Abrams, a woman in her 50s with silver-streaked hair and calm authority, approached them. "Mr. Mitchell, we're administering medication to stop the contractions. The stress and trauma have triggered premature labor, but we caught it early." "Will they be all right?" William asked, the billionaire businessman momentarily reduced to a concerned father. Dr. Abrams' expression softened slightly. "The next few hours are critical, but your daughter and grandchild are fighters. The contractions are already becoming less frequent." Sophia squeezed her father's hand. "I'm not losing this baby," she said with quiet determination. "Not after everything." William nodded, recognizing the strength beneath her fragility. "Whatever you need, specialists, equipment, anything, it's done." Dr. Abrams smiled faintly. "St. Mary's has one of the best neonatal units in the country, Mr. Mitchell. But your daughter needs something medicine can't provide." She checked Sophia's vitals once more before continuing. "Peace of mind. Stress is our enemy right now." As the medical team exited, leaving them in relative quiet, William pulled a chair beside Sophia's bed. Outside, lightning flashed across the darkened sky, briefly illuminating the room in harsh white light. The storm that had been gathering over the city for days showed no signs of abating, a fitting metaphor for the turbulence surrounding them. "I'm sorry," Sophia said softly. William looked surprised. "For what?" "For bringing this chaos into your life. For not telling you sooner about Alexander, for being so weak." "Stop." William's voice was gentle but firm. "You have nothing to apologize for, and you are not weak. You survived something that would have broken most people." Sophia turned her gaze toward the window, watching raindrops race down the glass. I keep thinking about how it happened, how I went from being a woman with dreams and ambitions to, she gestured vaguely at the hospital bed, to this. William remained silent, giving her space to speak. It was so gradual, she continued. First, it was little criticisms about my jewelry designs. Then suggestions that I focus on being a better wife instead of working so much. Then control over finances for my own good. By the time he first hit me, I was already isolated from everyone who might have helped. Her voice remained steady, as if she were discussing someone else's life. The most terrifying part wasn't the violence. It was watching myself disappear piece by piece. William's grip tightened on her hand. The controlled rage in his eyes would have made business opponents flinch, but his voice remained calm for his daughter's sake. You didn't disappear, Sophia. You're still here, and that man will never touch you again. A nurse entered with additional medication for Sophia's IV. As she worked, the television mounted on the wall caught William's attention. A breaking news banner scrolled across the bottom of the screen. Reed Investments stock trading halted after 47% decline. CEO Alexander Reed facing criminal investigation. The nurse finished her task and exited. William nodded toward the television. It's already beginning. By this time tomorrow, he'll have nothing left. Sophia studied her father's expression. What did you find? Everything, William replied. Financial fraud, money laundering, bribes to government officials. He paused. The names you remembered from that list were just the tip of the iceberg. Sophia closed her eyes briefly. I lived with a monster for 3 years and never truly knew who he was. He fooled a lot of people, William said. Regulators, business partners, the entire financial community. But not anymore, she whispered. No, William confirmed, not anymore. Sophia's breathing had steadied, the medication taking effect as the contractions subsided. The immediate crisis appeared to be passing. She looked at her father with clear eyes that reminded him painfully of her mother. What happens next? William considered how much to share, weighing his daughter's right to know against Dr. Abrams's warning about stress. The evidence Victoria obtained from Alexander's office is being prepared for the FBI and the district attorney. The indictments will likely come within days, not weeks. Sophia nodded slowly. And the trial? That depends on whether he fights the charges or seeks a plea deal. A small, bitter smile touched Sophia's lips. He'll fight. Alexander would rather burn everything to the ground than admit defeat. Then he'll burn, William said simply. The fetal monitor registered a strong, steady heartbeat, the sound filling the room with its rhythmic assurance. Sophia placed her hand over her swollen belly, feeling the baby shift beneath her palm. When this is over, she said quietly, I want to help other women. Women trapped like I was. William smiled for the first time since entering the hospital. I think that's a wonderful idea. Not just with money, Sophia continued, with real support, legal help, safe housing, job training, the things women need to rebuild their lives. William recognized the spark in her eyes, the same passion that had driven her jewelry designs before Alexander systematically crushed her spirit. It was the first glimpse of the daughter he remembered from before her marriage. We'll make it happen, he promised. The Mitchell Foundation has resources that have been waiting for the right project. Sophia's eyelids grew heavy as the medication in her IV induced drowsiness. Stay, she murmured, her grip on his hand loosening. I'm not going anywhere, William assured her. As Sophia drifted into sleep, William turned his attention back to the television, now muted but still showing footage of Reed Investments headquarters surrounded by news vans. His phone vibrated with an incoming text from James. FBI meeting confirmed for 9 a.m. tomorrow. Evidence ready. Victoria secure at safe house. Reed making moves. William typed a quick response. Sophia stable. Contractions stopped. I'll be there by 8. He settled back in his chair, prepared for a long night. Outside, the storm continued its assault on the city, wind howling between skyscrapers and rain lashing against glass. But inside this quiet room, watching over his daughter and unborn grandchild, William Mitchell found a moment of clarity amid the chaos. This was no longer just about vengeance. It was about justice. It was about protection. It was about ensuring that men like Alexander Reed could never again use power and privilege to destroy lives. Whatever it took, whatever the cost, William would see it done. The next morning arrived with harsh clarity. The storm had moved offshore, leaving behind a washed-clean city glistening under blue skies. At Mitchell Tower, the war room buzzed with activity as final preparations were made for the FBI meeting. Rachel Wong arranged documents with meticulous precision, creating a clear narrative of Alexander Reed's financial crimes. James Mitchell coordinated with Michael Chen, who was managing Victoria Hayes' security upstate while simultaneously preparing the digital evidence. William arrived precisely at 8, having come directly from the hospital. Despite the sleepless night, his appearance remained immaculate. Fresh suit, crisp white shirt, perfect Windsor knot in his dark blue tie. Only the shadow of exhaustion in his eyes betrayed the strain of recent days. "Sophia?" James asked immediately. "Stable," William replied. "The medication worked. She's resting comfortably and the baby's vitals are strong." Rachel glanced up from her documents. "That's excellent news." William moved to the head of the conference table, reviewing the assembled evidence. "Are we ready?" "Everything's prepared," Rachel confirmed. "Financial records, correspondence, the ledger entries, witness statements from Victoria and Maria Delgado. We've organized it chronologically and by type of offense." "What's the latest on Reed?" William asked. James activated a large screen displaying news headlines and social media trends. "He's gone dark since yesterday. No public appearances, no statements. His attorneys issued a press release claiming he's cooperating fully with authorities while maintaining his innocence." Michael's voice came through the speakerphone in the center of the table. "My sources say he's liquidating assets. 3 properties listed for sale yesterday, art collections being quietly offered to private buyers. He's gathering cash." William frowned. "Flight risk?" "Possible," Michael replied. "I've flagged it for the FBI. They're monitoring airports in his private jet." Rachel shook her head. "If he runs, it's an admission of guilt. Everything we've gathered suggests Alexander Reed's ego wouldn't allow that. Unless he has a contingency plan we haven't uncovered?" William mused. The elevator chimed, announcing the arrival of the federal agents. 2 FBI agents and a prosecutor from the Southern District entered the boardroom. Agent Diana Russo led the group, mid-50s, silver-streaked dark hair pulled back in a severe bun, reputation for methodical thoroughness. Beside her walked Agent Marcus Teller, younger but equally serious. The prosecutor, Andrew Feldman, carried himself with the confident precision of a man who rarely lost a case. William greeted them with professional courtesy. "Thank you for coming. We appreciate your prompt attention to this matter." Agent Russo nodded briskly. "The allegations are serious enough to warrant immediate investigation." Her sharp eyes took in the assembled evidence. "I understand you have new information beyond what was initially reported." "Substantially beyond," William confirmed. He gestured to Rachel, who began her presentation. For the next 2 hours, the federal officials absorbed the breadth of Alexander Reed's criminal enterprise. Bank statements, wire transfers, recorded conversations, the damning ledger with its meticulous record of bribes and blackmail. As the presentation concluded, Agent Russo remained expressionless, but her posture had tensed. "This goes well beyond domestic violence and financial fraud. These documents suggest corruption reaching into federal agencies in the judiciary." Prosecutor Feldman studied the evidence with growing intensity. "The case against Reed is overwhelming. With this evidence, we're looking at multiple felony counts: money laundering, wire fraud, tax evasion, bribery of public officials." He paused. "That's before we even address the assault charges." Agent Teller looked up from his notes. "And you can verify chain of custody for all of this evidence?" "The defense will challenge everything." "Ms. Hayes is prepared to testify regarding how she obtained the documents," Rachel confirmed. "The digital evidence includes metadata and timestamps. Everything has been handled according to proper protocols." William had remained silent during most of the presentation, allowing Rachel to lead. Now he spoke directly to Agent Russo. "There's one more piece you should see." He nodded to James, who brought up the documents regarding Senator Harrison. The room fell silent as the federal officials reviewed the evidence of monthly payments to the powerful banking committee chairman. Feldman whistled softly. "This complicates things," he said finally. "Harrison has friends in the Justice Department, which is precisely why this information needs to be handled at the highest levels," William replied. Agent Russo studied William carefully. "Mr. Mitchell, I appreciate your cooperation in this matter, but I have to ask, what's your ultimate objective here? This goes beyond seeking justice for your daughter." William met her gaze without hesitation. "My objective is simple. I want Alexander Reed to face the full consequences of his actions, both against my daughter and against the financial system he corrupted. No special treatment, no deals, no mercy." Russo nodded slowly. "Fair enough. We'll take it from here." She gathered the documents, securing them in a reinforced briefcase. "I should warn you, once this investigation goes public, the blowback will be substantial. Reed has powerful friends. So do I, William replied simply. As the federal officials departed with the evidence, James turned to his father. How long before they move on Reed? They'll need to coordinate with multiple agencies, Rachel answered instead. 24 to 48 hours, assuming they prioritize the case. William moved to the window, watching the federal agent's convoy depart far below. Reed won't sit idle during that time. He knows something is coming. James checked his phone. Security at the hospital reports all clear. Sophia's protection detail is fully staffed. William nodded, mind already moving to the next phase. Double it anyway, and arrange for Victoria Hayes to be moved again. Different location, different security team. You think Reed would target them? Rachel asked. A cornered animal is most dangerous when it has nothing left to lose, William replied. And we've just taken everything from him. Alexander Reed's penthouse had transformed from a showcase of wealth to a fortress under siege. The blinds remained drawn, security systems had been upgraded overnight. Armed private security patrolled the perimeter. Inside, Alexander paced the expansive living room like a caged predator. 3 phones lay on the glass coffee table, each continuously lighting up with calls he refused to answer. His attorney, Howard Griffith, watched with growing concern. You need to respond to the board, Griffith advised. They've voted to remove you permanently as CEO. The press release goes out at noon. Alexander continued pacing. Let them. The company's worthless now anyway. The SEC has expanded their investigation. They're freezing additional accounts. I moved the important assets weeks ago. Griffith's expression tightened. Alexander, you need to take this seriously. Sources at the FBI indicate a major indictment is imminent. Multiple felony counts. This isn't going away. Alexander stopped pacing, turning to face his attorney with cold fury. You think I don't know that? You think I don't see what's happening? He swept his arm across a side table, sending crystal decanters crashing to the floor. Mitchell has orchestrated this entire takedown. This goes beyond Mitchell now, Griffith said carefully. Federal agencies are involved. The evidence that Victoria stole from my office, Alexander snarled. Where is she? No one knows. She's disappeared. Alexander resumed pacing. Find her. She's the weak link. Without her testimony, they have nothing but circumstantial evidence and hearsay. Griffith shifted uncomfortably. There are other witnesses, your former housekeeper, Maria Delgado, several guests from the Gala, and he hesitated. And what? Your wife may testify. Alexander stopped abruptly. Sophia wouldn't dare. According to my sources, she's preparing to do exactly that. Her statement to prosecutors is scheduled for tomorrow. A dangerous stillness settled over Alexander. When he spoke again, his voice had dropped to that familiar, menacing whisper. Get out. Alexander, get out now. When Griffith had gone, Alexander moved to his private office. He unlocked a hidden panel behind his desk, revealing a small safe embedded in the wall, a secondary vault even Victoria hadn't known about. From it, he removed a passport under a different name, several stacks of currency, and a small flash drive. His phone rang, a private number only few possessed. He answered curtly. Yes? A voice with a faint Eastern European accent responded. The arrangements are complete. The yacht is positioned as requested. Crew is minimal and discreet. Timing? Midnight, the helicopter will be on standby. Once aboard, international waters within 40 minutes. Good. Alexander ended the call, slipping the phone into his pocket. He had no intention of facing a public trial, of watching his empire dismantled piece by piece for the world's entertainment. William Mitchell thought he had won, thought he had cornered the great Alexander Reed, but there was always an escape route for men who planned ahead. By this time tomorrow, he would be beyond the reach of American jurisdiction, and he wouldn't be going alone. First, he had one final debt to settle. The Manhattan District Attorney's Office occupied a fortress-like building in Lower Manhattan. Inside, the atmosphere combined government efficiency with legal gravitas. Assistant District Attorney Elena Martinez welcomed William and Sophia Mitchell into her corner office with professional courtesy. Mrs. Reed, Mitchell, Sophia corrected quietly. I've resumed my maiden name. Ada Martinez nodded. Ms. Mitchell, thank you for coming. I understand this is difficult, but your testimony is crucial to our case. Sophia sat straight-backed in the visitor's chair, hands folded over her expanded belly. At 7.5 months pregnant, she moved with careful deliberation. The bruises on her face had faded to yellowish shadows, but the emotional wounds remained fresh. William sat beside her, a protective presence. How long will this take? We'll be as efficient as possible, Martinez assured them. We need a formal statement about the assault at the Gala, as well as any prior incidents Ms. Mitchell can document. A court reporter positioned herself discreetly in the corner, ready to transcribe. Martinez activated a recording device on her desk. For the record, please state your name, Sophia Elizabeth Mitchell. And your relationship to Alexander Reed? He is my husband, though we are now separated. Martinez proceeded methodically through a series of questions about the marriage, establishing a timeline of escalating control and abuse. Sophia answered with remarkable composure, her voice steady as she recounted incidents that made even the experienced prosecutor wince. The first physical incident occurred approximately 6 months after our wedding, she explained. Alexander was displeased with dinner arrangements for business associates. After the guests left, he struck me across the face. He apologized immediately, promised it would never happen again. I believed him. But it did happen again, Martinez prompted gently. Yes, with increasing frequency, usually in ways that wouldn't leave visible marks. He was careful about that until the gala, Martinez finished. Yes, I spilled wine on his sleeve. Just a few drops. Sophia's composure faltered momentarily. She took a deep breath, steadying herself. He dragged me to the center of the ballroom, took a decorative whip from the auction display, and struck me 300 times. I counted each one. Martinez's expression remained professional, though her knuckles whitened around her pen. 300 lashes, while you were 7 months pregnant. Yes. And the guests, how did they react? Sophia's smile held no humor. They watched. Some recorded it on their phones. No one intervened until my father arrived. William's jaw tightened, but he remained silent. Can you also confirm that Mr. Reed forced you to sign financial documents without explaining their contents? Martinez continued. Yes, numerous times. When I asked questions, he would become angry, sometimes violent. Eventually, I stopped asking. Martinez nodded, making notes. Ms. Mitchell, we also need to discuss the offshore accounts and potential connections to government officials. For the next hour, Sophia detailed everything she could remember about Alexander's business practices, the names she had seen, the conversations she had overheard. Throughout, she maintained the same quiet dignity that had allowed her to survive years of abuse. As the statement concluded, Martinez switched off the recording device. Thank you, Ms. Mitchell. This testimony, combined with the evidence from federal investigators, gives us a very strong case. William spoke for the first time during the interview. What happens now? We'll present the evidence to the grand jury tomorrow morning. Given the strength of our case, I expect indictments by afternoon. Arrest warrants would follow immediately. William checked his watch. And Reed remains free until then? Under surveillance, Martinez assured him. The FBI has been monitoring him since yesterday. He's not going anywhere. Sophia placed a hand protectively over her belly as the baby shifted. He'll have contingency plans. Alexander always does. Martinez nodded. We're aware of that possibility. His assets are frozen, his passport flagged. Every exit point is being watched. As they prepared to leave, Martinez addressed Sophia directly. What you did today takes extraordinary courage. Many victims never find the strength to speak out, especially against someone as powerful as your husband. Sophia met her gaze. I'm not a victim anymore, that's the point. Outside the DA's office, William's driver waited with the armored town car. The security detail, 4 men with military precision and concealed weapons, formed a protective formation around Sophia. Back to the hospital for monitoring? William asked his daughter. Sophia shook her head. Not yet. There's one more place I need to go. Mom! The Reed Mitchell residence occupied a coveted position overlooking Central Park. The limestone mansion, valued at over $30 million, had been a wedding gift from Alexander to Sophia, or so the society pages had reported. In reality, it had been another gilded cage designed to showcase Alexander's wealth while keeping his wife isolated. The security team conducted a thorough sweep before allowing William and Sophia to enter. Inside, the grand foyer rose 3 stories, marble and crystal gleaming in the afternoon light filtering through tall windows. Sophia stood motionless, absorbing the space that had once been her prison. Despite its opulence, or perhaps because of it, the house felt cold, sterile, devoid of comfort. I never wanted this place, she said quietly. It was always his showpiece, never a home. William remained beside her, alert for any sign of distress. We don't have to stay. No, I need to do this. She moved toward the sweeping staircase that dominated the center of the house. This is where it started, the first time he hit me hard enough to leave a mark. She touched the 5th step from the bottom, her fingers tracing the marble edge. I fell here. Hit my head on the banister. 16 stitches at a private clinic where the doctor asked no questions because Alexander was an important donor. William's expression darkened, but he let her continue this exorcism of painful memories. Sophia moved through the main floor, the formal dining room where she had hosted Alexander's business associates with a perfect smile hiding bruised ribs, the library where he had berated her for hours over imagined social missteps, the kitchen where staff had pretended not to notice her flinching at sudden movements. Finally, she entered the master suite, a space larger than many apartments. The walk-in closet still held her clothes, arranged by color and season. Sophia ran her fingers over the fabrics, designer dresses chosen by Alexander, worn like costumes in the performance of being his wife. At the back of the closet, behind evening gowns she'd rarely worn, she found what she was looking for, a small leather case hidden in the lining of an old suitcase. She opened it carefully, revealing several pieces of jewelry, unlike the expensive baubles Alexander had given her. My first designs, she explained, showing William a delicate silver pendant. I kept them hidden. Alexander thought I'd destroyed them when he made me close my studio. William examined the intricate craftsmanship with genuine admiration. These are extraordinary, Sophia. They were my secret rebellion, a reminder of who I used to be. She closed the case, clutching it to her chest. It's the only thing I want from this house. As they prepared to leave, Sophia paused in the grand foyer, looking up at the crystal chandelier that hung like a frozen waterfall above them. What will happen to this place? She asked. Asset forfeiture, most likely, William replied. The federal government will seize it as proceeds of criminal activity. Sophia nodded, a weight visibly lifting from her shoulders. Good, I never want to see it again. Outside, the security team reported all clear as they escorted Sophia back to the vehicle. None of them noticed the discreet surveillance camera hidden in the ornamental stonework across the street, a camera that transmitted directly to Alexander Reed's private server, the same server where he now watched his wife and father-in-law depart from the house that had been his domain. Enjoy your victory lap, he murmured to the empty room. It will be brief. Demurm. Night fell over New York City, the skyline transforming into a glittering mosaic of lights. In the Mitchell penthouse, Sophia rested comfortably under medical supervision, the earlier contractions now completely subsided. The private duty nurse monitored vital signs, while Sophia slept peacefully for the first time in days. 20 floors below, William convened a final strategy meeting with James, Rachel, and Michael, who had returned from upstate after transferring Victoria to a new secure location. The arrest warrants will be issued tomorrow, William confirmed. Multiple federal charges, plus the state assault charges. Reed will be taken into custody before noon. Michael studied the security feeds on his tablet. Assuming they can find him, my sources say he hasn't been seen at the penthouse since this morning. The FBI has surveillance teams in place, Rachel pointed out. If he attempts to flee, they'll intercept him. James frowned. Unless he's already gone. Impossible, Michael replied. His accounts are frozen. His private jet is grounded at Teterboro under federal order. Commercial flights are being monitored. William's expression remained troubled. What about boats? Private charters? Michael tapped his tablet, bringing up Port Authority records. Nothing registered to Reed or any of his known aliases. The Coast Guard has been alerted regardless. William wasn't satisfied. He's planning something. I can feel it. He turned to James. Have the security detail check in. James contacted the head of Sophia's protection team. After a brief conversation, he reported, all clear on the residential floors. 4-man detail outside her door. Building security has doubled patrols. William nodded, though the unease remained. I want hourly updates through the night. No one enters her floor without explicit authorization. As the meeting concluded, Rachel lingered behind. William, you need rest. You've barely slept in days. I'll rest when Reed is behind bars. You're no good to Sophia if you collapse from exhaustion, she pressed. The security is comprehensive. The legal work is done. Take a few hours. William recognized the wisdom in her advice. Wake me immediately if anything changes, anything at all. In his private study, William finally allowed fatigue to overtake him. He reclined in the leather chair, intending only a brief rest. Within minutes, sleep claimed him for the first time in 36 hours. He didn't hear the soft ping of the building's security system resetting at precisely 2:17 a.m. Then, Sophia woke to darkness and silence. The monitoring equipment had been turned off, its reassuring beep silenced. The nurse who should have been seated nearby was nowhere to be seen. A shadow moved at the edge of her vision. Hello, Sophia. The voice, so familiar, so terrifying, sent ice through her veins. Alexander Reed stepped into the dim light from the window, impeccably dressed as always, his expression a mask of calm control. "How did you get in here?" she whispered, hand instinctively moving to protect her belly. "Money still opens doors, despite your father's efforts." He moved closer, studying her with clinical detachment. "You look better. The bruises have faded nicely." Sophia reached for the call button, but Alexander was faster, snatching it away with a tutting sound. "No one's coming." The security team received an urgent call about an intrusion on the lower level. Amazing how people run toward perceived danger, leaving the real threat unaddressed. "What do you want?" Sophia's voice remained steady despite her racing heart. "Originally, to punish you for betraying me." He sat on the edge of the bed, making her shrink away. "But I've reconsidered. You're coming with me instead." "I'm not going anywhere with you." Alexander smiled thinly. "You misunderstand. This isn't a request. In 1 hour, we'll be on my yacht, heading for international waters. By morning, we'll be beyond U.S. jurisdiction." "You're insane," Sophia whispered. "The FBI is watching you. The ports are monitored." "The FBI is watching my decoy, a man with similar build currently drinking conspicuously at the King Cole bar. As for monitoring ports," he shrugged. "Private helipad to private yacht, no port required." He stood, removing a syringe from his jacket pocket. "This won't harm the baby. Just keep you compliant during transit." Sophia's mind raced. The room had no other exits. Her father was floors below. Her security detail had been cleverly diverted. For a moment, despair threatened to overwhelm her. Then she remembered the words she had spoken to Ada Martinez. "I'm not a victim anymore." As Alexander approached with the syringe, Sophia's hand closed around the heavy crystal water pitcher on her bedside table. With strength born of desperation, she swung it directly at his head. Glass shattered. Alexander staggered backward, blood streaming from a gash across his temple. Sophia didn't hesitate. She lunged for the door, ignoring the pain that shot through her healing body. Alexander recovered quickly, grabbing her arm and yanking her back with brutal force. "Always defiant," he hissed, blood dripping down his face. "Always needing correction." His hand closed around her throat, pinning her against the wall. Spots danced before Sophia's eyes as oxygen became precious. "I gave you everything," he snarled, face inches from hers. "A life most women would kill for. And how did you repay me? By running to Daddy with pathetic complaints." Through the roaring in her ears, Sophia heard a sound. The elevator arriving on her floor. Alexander heard it too, his grip momentarily slackening. It was enough. Sophia brought her knee up sharply, connecting with Alexander's groin. As he doubled over, she broke free, gasping for air. The door burst open. William Mitchell stood framed in the doorway, flanked by Michael Chen and 2 security officers. The scene froze for a heartbeat. Sophia pressed against the wall, throat reddening with bruises. Alexander hunched in pain, blood streaming down his face, shattered glass glittering across the floor like diamonds. Then everything happened at once. Alexander lunged for Sophia again. Michael drew his weapon. William moved with surprising speed for a man his age, placing himself between his daughter and her attacker. "Touch her again," William said with lethal calm, "and it will be the last thing you ever do." Alexander straightened, a strange smile spreading across his bloodied face. "Too late, Mitchell. You've already lost." From his pocket, he produced a small remote detonator. "Insurance policy. Victoria Hayes is currently in a safe house in the Catskills. At least what will remain of it after I press this button." Michael's weapon remained trained on Alexander's chest. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" Alexander's thumb hovered over the trigger. "Are you willing to gamble with her life after all she's done for your case?" William's expression hardened. "If you harm her, you'll never leave this building alive." "A fair trade," Alexander replied coldly. "My life is effectively over anyway, but I can still ensure others go down with me." The standoff stretched for several tense seconds. Then Michael lowered his weapon slightly, nodding to William. "Smart choice," Alexander said. "Now I'll be leaving with my wife. Any attempt to follow us will have explosive consequences for Miss Hayes." "No." Sophia's voice cut through the tension, stronger and clearer than anyone expected. "I'm not going anywhere with you, Alexander." She moved to stand beside her father, head high despite the red marks darkening around her throat. "You don't control me anymore. You don't own me. You don't decide my fate." Alexander's smile vanished. "You stupid woman. You still don't understand what's happening. This isn't a negotiation." "You're right," came a new voice from the doorway. "It's not." FBI agent Diana Russo entered the room, weapon drawn, followed by several agents in tactical gear. Alexander Reed, you're under arrest for assault, attempted kidnapping, financial fraud, and conspiracy to commit terrorism. Alexander's eyes widened in genuine shock. Impossible! Your people are watching my decoy. Some of them, Rousseau agreed. Others have been tracking you since you entered this building. As for your insurance policy, she gestured to an agent who held up the detonator's receiver, already disarmed. Ms. Hayes was moved to a different location hours ago. The safe house you targeted has been empty all day. The realization that he had been outmaneuvered registered on Alexander's face. For a man accustomed to controlling every situation, the loss of power was more devastating than the arrest itself. This isn't over, he spat as agents secured his hands behind his back. William stepped forward, his voice low enough that only Alexander could hear. It was over the moment you laid hands on my daughter. Everything since then has just been the execution of your sentence. As the FBI led Alexander away, Sophia sagged against her father, the adrenaline draining from her system. William supported her gently, guiding her back to the bed while medical personnel were summoned. How did you know? She asked weakly. Michael noticed the security system reset, William explained. It was only for a millisecond, but it was enough to raise concerns. When we couldn't reach your security detail, we knew something was wrong. Sophia nodded, hand moving to her belly where the baby kicked vigorously. He was going to take me away, force me back into that life. He'll never come near you again, William promised. The evidence against him was already overwhelming. After tonight, he'll spend the rest of his life in a federal prison. Agent Russo approached them as paramedics examined Sophia's injuries. Ms. Mitchell, I know this is difficult, but we'll need a statement about tonight's events. I'll tell you everything, Sophia assured her. But first, I need to know, is Victoria safe? Completely, Russo confirmed. Reed's threat was empty. We've been monitoring all his communications since the investigation began. When he contracted with a demolitions expert 3 days ago, we intercepted the entire operation. William's expression darkened. He was willing to kill for revenge. And now he'll face additional charges for it, Russo replied. Between the financial crimes, the assault, and tonight's attempted kidnapping and terrorism, Reed is looking at multiple life sentences. As the FBI processed the scene, Sophia remained calm, answering questions with the same quiet dignity that had carried her through the statement to the district attorney. The fear that had lived inside her for 3 years was finally beginning to dissolve, replaced by something she had thought lost forever. Freedom. Outside, dawn broke over Manhattan, painting the skyline in hues of gold and promise. A new day had begun, the first of many Sophia would face without the shadow of Alexander Reed darkening her life. By 1 year later, the grand ballroom of the Plaza Hotel glowed with soft blue light. Crystal chandeliers cast gentle illumination across the marble floor where 1 year earlier, Sophia Mitchell had suffered her most public humiliation. Tonight, the space had been transformed for a different purpose, the inaugural gala of the Hope Foundation. Where once there had been horror and silence, now there was purpose and strength. The room buzzed with conversation as New York's elite gathered once again, but this time to support an organization dedicated to helping women escape domestic violence. At the center of it all stood Sophia Mitchell, radiant in a gown of silver blue silk that caught the light with every movement. In her arms, she cradled her 6-month-old daughter, Hope, whose curious eyes surveyed the glittering scene with wonder. It's time, whispered Rachel Wong, who had traded her attorney's suit for an elegant black evening dress. Sophia nodded, handing baby Hope to her father. William took his granddaughter with practiced ease, his stern features softening instantly. Ready? He asked his daughter. Sophia smiled, a genuine smile that reached her eyes. I've been ready for this my whole life. She moved to the stage with quiet confidence, the crowd parting respectfully. As she took her place at the podium, a hush fell over the room. Cameras flashed, but this time they captured not a victim, but a woman who had reclaimed her power. 1 year ago, she began, her clear voice carrying to every corner of the ballroom. I stood in this very room broken and afraid. Tonight I stand here whole and strong, surrounded by people who believe as I do, that no woman should ever suffer in silence. The audience listened in rapt attention, many eyes glistening with tears. The Hope Foundation exists because sometimes the most dangerous place for a woman is her own home. Because sometimes the hardest chains to break are the ones we cannot see. Because sometimes courage isn't about fighting back, it's about walking away. She paused, gaze sweeping across the room. In our first year, we provided legal assistance to over 200 women. We've created safe housing for 57 families. We've funded education and job training programs that have already helped 32 women achieve financial independence. But we're just beginning. From the side of the stage, William watched his daughter with unmistakable pride. Hope gurgled happily in his arms, reaching for the lights above. Every woman deserves the chance to reclaim her voice, Sophia continued. Every woman deserves to feel safe. Every woman deserves to be free. This foundation is dedicated to making that possible, one life at a time. The applause that followed was thunderous, a standing ovation that seemed to wash away the last echoes of that terrible night 1 year before. Later, as the gala continued around them, Sophia and William stood near the tall windows overlooking Fifth Avenue. Baby Hope had fallen asleep against her grandfather's shoulder, tiny fingers curled around his lapel. Alexander's appeal was denied, William said quietly. The conviction stands, 25 years without possibility of parole. Sophia nodded, her expression serene. I saw the news. You didn't mention it in your speech, because tonight it isn't about him, she replied simply. It never was. William studied his daughter's face, seeing in it echoes of the woman she had been before Reed entered her life, but also something new, a hard-earned wisdom and strength that hadn't been there before. Your mother would be proud of you, he said softly. Sophia smiled, touching the sleeping baby's cheek. I think she would be proud of both of us. You became the father I needed when it mattered most. Behind them, James approached with a small envelope. Sorry to interrupt, he said, but this just arrived for you, Sophia. Security checked it. It's safe. Sophia took the envelope, opening it curiously. Inside was a single sheet of paper and a small key. Her eyes widened as she read the brief note. What is it? William asked. It's from Victoria Hayes, Sophia explained. She's been in witness protection since the trial. She's leaving the country tomorrow, starting fresh somewhere else. She held up the key. This is to a safety deposit box. She says my jewelry designs are inside. The ones Alexander claimed were destroyed. She saved them. William's eyebrows rose. That's unexpected. Maybe not, Sophia said thoughtfully. We were both prisoners in our own way. The difference is I had someone to help me escape. She tucked the note and key into her evening bag. I should thank her someday. Across the ballroom, Rachel approached with an older couple, prospective donors to the foundation. Sophia straightened her shoulders, ready to continue the work of the evening. Coming, she asked her father. William nodded toward the sleeping baby. In a moment, Hope and I are having an important conversation about the stock market. Sophia laughed, a sound that had once been rare but now came easily, and moved to greet the new arrivals. William watched her go, marveling at the transformation. From the broken woman he had carried from this very ballroom a year ago to the confident leader who now commanded respect from the city's most powerful figures. The journey had been painful, but the result was nothing short of miraculous. Hope stirred against his shoulder, making soft baby sounds. William gently rocked his granddaughter, whispering, Your mother is the strongest person I know. Someday you'll understand what that means. Wow. Alexander Reed sat alone in a cell at the Federal Correctional Facility, staring at the small television mounted high on the opposite wall. The evening news showed footage of the Hope Foundation Gala. Sophia at the podium, composed and elegant, her voice steady as she addressed the crowd. The contrast couldn't have been more stark. The woman he had tried to destroy was now more powerful than ever, while he sat in prison clothes, stripped of everything that had once defined him. His empire dismantled, his reputation ruined, his freedom gone. The news anchor's voice droned on about the foundation's success, about the millions raised for victims of domestic violence, about the legislation Sophia was helping to craft that would make it easier for women to leave abusive situations. A guard passed by, pausing briefly at his cell. Mail for you, Reed. Alexander took the envelope without comment. Inside was a newspaper clipping about the seizure and repurposing of his Manhattan mansion, now the headquarters of the Hope Foundation. There was no note, no indication of who had sent it. He didn't need one. He knew exactly who it was from. Alexander crumpled the paper in his fist, then smoothed it out again, staring at the image of Sophia cutting a ribbon across the doorway of what had once been his home. Her father stood beside her, and in her arms was a baby, the child he had never seen. For the first time since his arrest, something cracked in Alexander Reed's carefully maintained facade. A tear slid down his cheek, not for what he had done, but for what he had lost. Pa! 6 months later, Sophia stood in her workshop at the Hope Foundation headquarters, bent over a jeweler's bench. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, glinting off the silver she was carefully shaping into an intricate pendant. Her tools moved with practiced precision, muscle memory returning as if the years away from her craft had never happened. Her original designs, the ones Victoria had preserved, had become the basis for a new jewelry line, with all proceeds benefiting the foundation. The door opened and William entered, carrying a stack of reports. "The new shelter in Chicago is on track to open next month," he said, "and the legal aid program in Los Angeles has already exceeded projections." Sophia looked up, smiling. "That's wonderful." She set down her tools. "And the fellowship program?" 10 women selected for the first cohort. Full scholarships, living stipends, childcare, everything they need to rebuild their lives. She nodded, satisfaction evident in her expression. "Good. That's the heart of what we're doing, giving women the tools to stand on their own." William placed the reports on her desk. "There's something else." He hesitated. "Senator Harrison's trial begins next week. The prosecutor wants to know if you'll attend." Sophia considered this. "No," she said finally. "That chapter is closed. Let justice take its course without me." William nodded, understanding. "Speaking of justice, there's a letter for you." He held out an envelope bearing the seal of the Federal Bureau of Prisons. Sophia took it, recognizing the handwriting immediately. "Alexander, you don't have to read it." "I know." She set the letter aside. "Maybe someday, not today." Outside the workshop, the sounds of the foundation in full operation filtered through. Phones ringing, voices conferring, the occasional laughter. In the year and a half since its inception, the Hope Foundation had grown from a concept into a formidable organization with offices in 3 cities and partnerships across the country. William moved to the window, looking out at the Central Park view that had once been Alexander's. "I never thought I'd say this, but in a twisted way, we owe him something." Sophia joined her father at the window. "What do you mean?" "Without him, without what happened, none of this would exist. Hundreds of women wouldn't have found help. Dozens of children wouldn't have safe homes." He shook his head. "It's a hell of a silver lining to find in such darkness." Sophia touched her father's arm. "That's the thing about darkness, Dad. It helps us recognize the light." From the nursery down the hall came the sound of Hope's delighted laughter, followed by the deeper chuckle of James, who had become an enthusiastically devoted uncle. "I should go rescue my brother," Sophia said, smiling. "Last time I left them alone, he let her put ribbons in his hair." As she moved to the door, William called after her. "Sophia?" She paused, looking back. "I'm proud of you, not just for what you've built here, but for who you've become." Her eyes softened. "I had a good example to follow." After she left, William remained at the window, watching the city spread out below. From this height, the people looked like ants, the buildings like toys. It was the kind of view that could make a man feel like a god, the illusion that had corrupted Alexander Reed. But William Mitchell had learned what real power was. It wasn't about controlling others. It wasn't about wealth or status. Real power was about protection, about justice, about turning pain into purpose. His phone rang. "Bye, Mom." Rachel with updates on the Foundation's latest legal initiative. As he answered, William glanced once more at the letter from Alexander Reed, lying unopened on Sophia's desk. Some demons were best left unaddressed. Some chapters needed to stay closed. Outside, the sun continued its arc across the sky, casting long shadows across the city. In the Foundation's main hall, Sophia Mitchell gathered her daughter into her arms, breathing in the scent of baby shampoo and innocence. Hope reached up, tiny fingers tracing her mother's smile. "From pain, we rise," Sophia whispered to her daughter, echoing the words engraved on the Foundation's entrance. "That's the promise I make to you. That's the legacy we're building together." Above them, the Foundation's logo, a stylized phoenix in soft blue, caught the afternoon light, its wings spread wide in eternal flight.